exactly what he's doing. And he's been around all over the world. We've been doing the business for a couple of years. It's my great pleasure to introduce to us today the presence of Mr. Akinyemi Olatayo.
Thank you. It's a
So,
pleasure to be here.
I need you to tell us more about yourself before we start. Just tell us more about yourself, what you do,
Okay.
background, and all.
Okay. First, I'd like to apologize for there might be some noise around me. We have a we have a gig this afternoon, an online gig, um, and we're having to pick. I'm having to join the guys to pick some of the equipment so that we can be fast. So I might be doing most of this from the car, but nevertheless, my full attention is here.
Okay.
Okay, so just a small background on me, on myself. I actually started as a musician.
Okay.
Um, what brought me into sound and lighting and video and stage and shows was actually musicianship.
Mm.
So very young, I think I started playing the keyboard when I was about 10, playing around with it, well, not playing it properly, but at least I started making noise with the piano when I was 10. And then I got into all the choirs, the school choir, the church choir. I was playing drums for my church choir. I was playing the traditional drums for my school choir. And I was just generally very enthusiastic about music. I love music. And then after I finished secondary school, especially while I was in tertiary school, I got even more deeply involved in music. So I joined a band called SOJ back then, Supremacy of Jesus. And I was the guitarist of the band as well as one of the vocalists. And I was my happiest when I was playing music.
Okay.
But we had a particular challenge that kept on recurring, which is we will rehearse, we'll prepare for our show, we'll prepare for the administration, we'll rehearse our heart out on Saturday. It will sound fantastic. Then on Sunday we'll come to church or go to the event and try to perform. And then the sound will mess everything up. I mean, I'm talking this is like 27, 28 years back. And sound engineering was not yet a thing. There was nothing called sound engineering then. We had electricians and electronic guys that will handle the mix amplifier, the Ahuja amplifier, or piano amplifier for us and try to do sound of it. Of course, they knew nothing about sound. Neither did we. We just knew it didn't sound good when we were it. And that was actually what brought me to sound. The fact that we couldn't get the system to sound good on Sunday. So I started tinkering with amplifiers and later on mixers and effect machines and processors. And I found out that I think I got good at it. I got so good at it that people started inviting me more to handle their console or the amplifier during their events rather than come to sing. So it became a natural crossover. When I moved to Lagos, I eventually fully settled into sound engineering. Although I still sing once in a while.
Okay. But I've not heard you sing before, though. Okay, now you mentioned some things. You said you've been actively into music. You've been thinking playing instruments. Now, I need just to know that you need to tell us that what is the effect of understanding this instrument and bringing it into sound? Because I know that there are a lot of sound engineers that probably they are good at what they are doing, but they don't understand what it takes to activate all these musical instruments when it comes to live play. You know, it's a different way I'm setting up sound, and I know exactly how a drum should sound. I know how it works sound. It's not about just putting on gains and effects. I know exactly a tone that. So, do you want to tell me that being a musician, understanding the instrument have a very huge effect in sound engineering?
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. Now it's it's not a secret.
Mm.
It's not a secret. It's open knowledge that the best the best sound engineers in the world, anywhere in the world, and I'm not talking just America or Europe, Nigeria, South Africa, the best sound engineers in all of the world are musicians who became engineers or musicians who also engineer. That's a fact. Because, I mean, sound engineering is partly a science, but it's also partly an art. So if you sing, if you have already, if you have situations where you sing and then you amplify your voice and you know what you want, you know how you want your voice to sound,
we can see
it's easier for you. Sorry?
So we can see you, we can only hear your voice.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That must be my phone. Okay.
Yeah, we can
Sorry,
see.
I'm new to Android, so I'm just learning how to use that text. So my phone got missing last week, so I'm here to replace it. Okay, so if you sing, then you know what you want your voice to sound like. So it makes it easier for you to mix somebody else that is singing. Same thing. If you play the guitar or you play the keyboards or you play the drums, then when you are mixing for somebody who's playing any of those instruments, you already have an idea of how it should sound like. And then when those musicians describe, if they want something in particular, and when they describe what they want for you, you easily understand, you easily get it because you understand the sound of that thing. And so the best engineers in the world, all over the world, all the ones I've met, from Schweppes to George Wells to Tim Hall, my friend, that's the sound engineer for the saxophone guy. I mean, all the ones I know, all the top engineers I know are musicians. They are musicians. All of them. Yeah. So a good understanding of music is actually necessary to do proper sound engineering. There's a level of mixing you can't cross into if you don't at least have an idea of music. So when I ask churches to give me volunteers, people that will learn sound engineering, I always ask them to send people from the choir or send people from their praise team or send people who are involved in music in one way or the other. Okay, because they will be able to appreciate sound and understand it quicker and easier.
Yep. Thank you very much. So for those that are just joining us now, we are live here with Mr. Tayo. Mr. Tayo is a wonderful, fantastic sound engineer. A wonderful job in this industry, and also he is a Christian as well, and is a musician. So today we've been having some discussion about the impact of sound, being a musician, and also the effect of a musician or a singer as a sound engineer. So we'll quickly divert a bit. We'll be talking about sound check now. So I realize, especially in this region that we are now, I know this happens everywhere in the world, but I want to use Middle East, America, even in Africa as a case study right now. That we really prioritize sound check because we believe once this sound is ready, guys, let's play. Once this sound is ready, singers pick up your mic and let's sing. Now, and I understand that the situation at hand, sometimes we have limited time. Imagine when you have just 1 hour, In that 1 hour, you have to set up your sound, and the service must start, or your gig must start. So can you tell us the importance of sound? Because as far as I'm concerned, once there is no sound check, there is no music. There is no music once sound check is not done. Now, I need you to re-educate us about the importance of sound check, because in this room now we have singers, we have musicians, we have church leaders. Some are still the way they are still joining us. So I need you to elaborate more about the importance of sound check before we go to the next question.
Okay, so one of the, challenges we've always had in Africa at large and in Nigeria, and I'm sure a lot of us that have traveled to the bigger cities, I've also exported the same challenge there. I see the same challenge even when I go to do engineering work in other cities outside Nigeria. The same problem persists, which is that we don't plan. We don't plan. And that extends to everything. Okay, that extends to our gig, that extends to sound check. And then it just naturally affects everything. Okay. I think, I don't know who said it, but I keep remembering it. I think one of those popular people said, if I have 20 minutes to cut a tree, I will spend 15 minutes sharpening the cutlass. Because like the Bible puts it, when your cutlass or when your sword is sharp, you spend less time to fell a tree. Okay, so planning is very important, and a core part of your planning is the sound check. Okay, of course there are things that need to be done, like you have administration or you have an event tomorrow. It's good to plan. Okay, how many keyboards are we using? Are we using a bass guitar? Are we using drums? How many mics are we putting on the drum? It's good to have this thing spelled out, written down. Write it down. It's called a rider. You write down your rider. What is required for the event? If possible, take some time, ask the engineer now, take some time to plan where you want to plug what. So input 1 is for kick, input 2 is for snare, input 3 is for hi-hat. Everything is labeled out. If you can even go further and you have access to the console, or you have the software for the console, you can actually create your template on the console, so that by the time you get to the event, you don't need to spend so much time preparing things. That will allow the musicians more time to do their sound check. Okay, so why sound check is important is, no matter how good a sound engineer is, he cannot determine everything. Now, most of the personal instruments which you are going to be using have their own personal volume. So the keyboardist has his own volume, the guitarist has his own volume on the guitar. Even the drummer can either play quietly or play hard. Okay, so he has some control over his volume as well. So because the sound engineer doesn't have control over all these volumes, it's good for everybody to perform together, which now gives the sound engineer the opportunity to balance the different sounds coming from the different people and then input it into the different speakers. In most cases, you have more than one musician sharing a monitor. You have more than one singer sharing a monitor. It's only very, very, very rich churches or exceptionally rich projects that can afford to have one speaker per singer. So you have 5 backup singers on stage and you have 5 monitors, one on each mix. That hardly happens. Okay, which means all the vocalists will have to share the mix. Same thing with brass. So if you have a saxophonist, a trumpeter, a trombonist, most likely the three of them will have to share one floor monitor if they are using a monitor, which is one mix. And it takes time to balance these things. If the engineer doesn't have time to fine tune these things, you don't want to go into the performance when you are still adjusting volumes, you are still adjusting EQs. So what soundcheck does is that it gives you that opportunity to perform without an audience. The audience is not yet there. So like you will rehearse your song before you perform it. That is the opportunity for the engineer to sort of rehearse your setting and get things right before the audience comes in. So a sound check is very, very important. Without a sound check, you don't get a chance to perfect your sound, which means even you might not enjoy your sound as much as you would. All right. So sound check is very, very key, very important. So as a routine in my church, for instance, we have a sound check time. So service starts at 8:45 every Sunday, but all the musicians know you have to arrive. You have to arrive latest by 8:20, which gives us about 35 minutes to sound check. If you don't arrive at 8:20 on a Sunday, it means you're not playing, you're not joining the band. It is a rule because then you are not able to sound check. It doesn't matter that you came yesterday and you had a rehearsal. Things could have changed a bit. So things could have been moved around. I mean, something could have pulled out, something could have changed on the go. So it's always good to sit down and do a sound check, even if it's just 20 minutes. If it's a regular church, like your own church, where it's the same church, the same people playing every Sunday, then you might not even need a lot of time. It might just be a very basic 10 or 15 minutes that you need for sound check. But that part is very important. So you need to plan it the way you plan your service. It has to be part of the time you allocate. All right. Even if it's just 15 minutes, you have to have a sound check with all the musicians playing and all the equipment plugged in, all the singers singing. That helps to ensure a smooth event or a smooth service.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. So, to for my further question. Now, I need you to let us know that the importance of sound engineers attending rehearsals or band meetings. Because I was curious about time that there are fantastic musicians, good music, wonderful guys, good players. They've rehearsed, they've done everything well. But the sound engineer have zero idea about the music. Now, for example, particular song, three lead singers, and they know they usually do in the churches. They have one microphone for a lead singer, but for this particular song, they'll be using three microphones to lead a song. Now, the sound engineer does not come for the rehearsal, and there's a certain level of information that, in fact, the sound engineer is part of the part. So tell us the importance and necessity of the engineers also be part of every band meeting.
Okay. Well, I approach this cautiously because I know. I mean, probably most of the sound engineers that are here are just volunteers. So it's not as if you're a paid engineer and stuff. So I know it might cost you some sacrifice to set time apart to come for rehearsal on a Saturday, come for service maybe on Wednesday, and then Bible study on Wednesday, and then come for service again on Sunday. But these are some of the prices you are paying towards excellence. And the more excellent you become, the more your work stands out, the more you actually stand a chance from being able to get something back from engineering. As a church engineer, you might not get a lot of pay. You might not get a salary that is, that you will call comfortable. But I assure you, if you get very good at what you do, and your work becomes noticeable, you can be very sure that somebody somewhere will hear your work and love it, and because of that, they will give you a mixed job or give you a gig or give you a contact that probably will pay you um, that will pay you as much as your year's salary in one event. And it has happened to me before, so that's what I'm saying. Okay. So if you can make the sacrifice, it is very necessary to know the song you are working with, to know the people you are working with, in order for you to mix very well. You know, like I said, mixing is a creative thing. It's not just about making everything audible. Apart from making everything audible, there's a part of making everything sweet. Let me tell you, a sound engineer can make the difference between a perfect, fantastic ministration and an ordinary ministration.
Absolutely.
There's a way you mix a song, and people in church just don't want that song to finish. It's like, please don't stop singing. Just keep singing the song. You know, because ministration, especially in church, is actually a combined work. It's combined work. It's not just the people singing and the people playing, but also the engineer putting it together. There are lots of effects, especially on today's consoles, that you can add. If you add them at the right time, if you add them in the right quantity, it enhances, it really, really enhances. Just like pastors have been discovering that lighting, you know, the lighting, if properly programmed, if properly arranged, also enhances worship. You might think sound is not spiritual, or you might think lighting is not spiritual. You are very wrong, because because sound and lightning are actually very, very spiritual. Just the same way music is very spiritual. It just depends on how you apply it. Okay, and that is why in heaven light doesn't go out. Jesus emanates light. There's an importance in the role that light plays. There's an importance in the role that sound plays in worship. All right. I've heard my pastor say that when sound is not good, when he's preaching and sound is not good, he's always in a hurry to finish the message. He's just looking forward to end the message. But the day that he enjoys that sound, that the sound works for him, we practically have to beg him to leave the stage because he won't stop preaching. So if you can dedicate some time to come for the rehearsal, hear the song that the choir is singing. If you can be a bit more disciplined about it, take pen and paper or take a jotter, actually plot a timeline. Oh, at 2 minutes into the song, they are singing a part that will you want to embellish the back of vocals, maybe put a little flanger on their voice. And then, it gets to a point in the song where the lead vocalist does an ad-lib. He just adds one ad-lib to it. And you think, oh, how can I make this ad-lib bit sound better? So, okay, I can add delay, what we call echo in layman's language. I can add a bit of echo to that part, you know, and as it sings, you just hear, halle, 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 halle. Those little things go a long way to embellish songs, to make songs, to bring out the beauty of administration. And doing those things is very difficult if you don't know the song. I'm a church boy, but I do jobs that are not 100% church. So Asha's concert that I attended 2 years ago, I wasn't an engineer. I was just a supporting. I gave them some equipment that she did here in Nigeria. It's one of the best concerts I've ever attended. And it's not because maybe she did her regular songs, the songs we all know. But the sound engineers and the light engineers she brought from France, they knew every bit of her song, even the Yoruba part, down to the ad-libs. So I was watching the engineer and I was watching the light guy, the French guys, as she was singing. They were singing along with her on the console and on the light console. They were singing. They knew every part. So they know when she's going to do that ad-lib They know when she's going to just throw in that little bit, and they're ready for it. So the whole performance was almost heavenly. I mean, people will get up and clap non-stop after each song because everything sounded so right. And the only way you can get that kind of quality out of music is if you know the song, you've rehearsed the song, you understand the song, you've interpreted the song in your own terms and planned how you would deliver it. It will make a lot of difference. And like I said, you might think nobody's noticing, but you'll be surprised that people are taking notice. You know, and you'll be surprised the kind of opportunities that can open up for you if you just take it upon yourself to do things correctly and to get good results. So rehearsing with the choir is a very important thing if you can make it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So before we go,
You're welcome, sir.
I have two more questions before we meet other questions from our guests.
Okay.
Today, we are talking about the importance of sound in our day-to-day life, and especially in the church music. So sound is very important, and we've heard that we talked about the duty of a sound engineer, that it is a necessity. Every sound engineer to know the song, to know even for the strokes, whatever chords, to know the understanding of these things. And to understand each sound also will help your So this meeting might go off in the next couple of minutes. So I want us to join. I promise that we're going to have like 15 more minutes, like 15 or 20 more minutes to go. So I'll be ending this meeting now. We can join again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. For you to minister, you now turn the same keyboard, you turn it to 3 o'clock.
Okay.
What you have just done is that you have just destroyed the whole of the time that you used for sound check. Because once you change your volume by a lot, you've changed the balancing of the music, not just for yourself alone. Yeah, presumably maybe you're trying to hear yourself more in your monitor, and but you are not making yourself just louder in your monitors alone. When you turn up the volume of your keyboard, you are making yourself louder in your monitor, you are making yourself louder in the vocalist monitor, you are making yourself louder in the front of house, you are making yourself louder in the pastor's monitor. So you are completely disrupting whatever was said. And that means every other person too. So if the guitarist was playing and it was fine with the volume that you had during the sound check, when you turn the volume of the keyboard louder, if your keyboard becomes so loud, even in the guitarist monitor, that the guitarist is now not able to hear himself as well as he was hearing himself. Because this is audio, it's shared. And what does the guitarist do? The guitarist also turns up his own volume so that he can hear himself. The bassist does the same thing because now your instruments have become louder than theirs. And then the poor vocalists, who are the only ones that don't have a volume control on their instruments, they don't have a volume control on their microphone. They now have to start screaming to be able to hear themselves. That's not good for their voice. That's not good for the music. And for to a great extent, this is why a lot of church music and a lot of let me call it homemade music that we do doesn't sound so fantastic. They are not dynamics. Every music requires dynamics. Every song requires dynamics. Dynamics is the difference between the loud parts of a song and the low parts of a song. So there are times that you need to sing softly and the keyboard needs to play some passages, softly. And then there are parts that you accent where you need the volume to swell or to rise and then come back to normal. So there must be there must be that variation in volumes, the crescendos, and the rest in the music to make the music complete. What you do when you turn your instrument very high is that you remove the possibility for that dynamic. Take yourself as a guitarist now.
Okay.
When you are playing as the regular song, you turn your guitar already to maximum volume, you know, or you have made the engineer turn your volume up so much that you can't turn your volume higher. If you turn your volume higher than that, then it starts distorting or it starts cracking. Okay, so you're already at max volume and you're playing the and you're not even playing the lead part yet. You're just playing regular rhythm. What are you going to do when it gets to the part where you're supposed to play a solo?
And
Maybe the lead singer stops and gives you some space to play solo. You're already at your max volume. So you are forced to play your solo that's supposed to stand out. You are forced to play it at the same volume as you play the body of the song. And that makes it ineffective. I've always enjoyed working with whites. Not that they always get it right, but in terms of managing volumes on stage, they do a far better job than us.
Yeah.
You see an average white band, they do their sound check, they put their volumes at 12 o'clock, they come back for the show, their volume is in exactly the same position. You don't need to touch the console because they will not move their volume from where it is. And they're playing the song, then it gets to the part where the guitarist wants to do the solo. He simply turns up his volume a little bit, plays the solo, and the moment he's done with the solo, he turns it back to the volume where it was. So as the engineer, you actually don't need to mess with their volume at all. They know how to. And that's because they do something that is very important, which is called active listening. It's called active listening. So the guy playing guitar is not listening, he's just not listening to his own guitar alone and enjoying it.
Okay.
He's listening to the vocalist, he's listening to the keyboardist, he's listening to the bassist, he's listening to the drummer. He wants to hear everybody. And that's called active listening. So when he's too loud, he knows he's too loud because then he's dominating everybody. The same thing with the vocalist. The vocalist might say, oh, we don't play an instrument. It's the same. So usually in the song arrangement, you will have parts. You will have vocal parts. So you'll have the sopranos, you have the altos, you have the tenors. And averagely, they are supposed to be at the same level. So when the tenor starts shouting and dominating everybody else, if they are listening actively, you can tell that they are too loud. Because if you listen to what is coming out of the monitors, then it is dominated by you. That is not good. So one of the things I used to do as a practice when I was still doing a lot of active gigging as a band, for all our rehearsals and then for our smaller shows, I always insisted on us using just a pair of monitors. Just 2 monitors for everybody. The drummer, the talking drummer, the bassist, the guitarist, the vocalist. And the reason I did that was to get us used to actively listening. So all of us know it's the same mix we are listening to. We know what we are hearing in the monitor is also what they are hearing in the front of us. So when you are too loud in that monitor, you know you are too loud in the front of us. And that style actually really did work for a long time because we got used to listening for each other. So you are singing a song, we are singing a song, you just notice, all I'm hearing is sopranos and tenors. Automatically, the tenors drop their volume, the sopranos drop their volume, and then the sopranos sing a bit so that it sounds good. And it worked so well that for the time that we were singing, that I was still doing my band, one comment that we almost always get everywhere we go to is that they will say, oh, you guys sound like a CD. You always sound as if they are playing a CD. No matter who the engineer was, we always sound balanced. Because each person tried to listen for the other people. Okay, and in that case, your stage won't even have to be loud. Your stage doesn't have to be very loud because with little volume, you can hear yourself and you know it's not a competition. When you need to be louder, maybe you are playing a solo, you go higher. you do your solo, and then you come back. So that is very important. We need to do active listening. It's not a competition. Everybody needs to be heard, and we also need to hear each other. Secondly, especially for the vocalist, I try to teach that we need to learn what you call microphone techniques. There are microphone techniques for the average microphone. So a microphone sounds different when you are holding it by the handle, which is the normal way a microphone is meant to be held. The microphone sounds different when you hold the part of the grill. You know, like rappers hold their microphone, they club it. The microphone sounds different. You change the frequency response of the microphone when you cover the grill. Now, some of us do it as fashion. It's not fashion. Some of the singers that do it intentionally. You see what's his name? Fred Hammond. When he covers his microphone like that, he's not doing it for fashion. He wants that. He's going for that nasal sound, because by the time he covers that, the frequency response of your microphone at the high mid level increases. It almost sounds like a home speaker, and that's the kind of sound he wants to project. So he does it intentionally. Then you see, get to some part of the song where he now holds the microphone. So he's not doing it by accident. He's actually doing those things to control the sound of the mic. So you can also take some time. You don't have to go to a special school to learn that. You can take some time, maybe one of the rehearsal days, ask the engineer to come maybe 30 minutes before and turn on the equipment for you. Take your regular microphone, maybe an SM58 or your wired microphone or your wireless microphone, whichever one it is, and then do different things with it. Most microphones sound different when you sing from the side than when you sing directly from the top. Most microphones. So the pickup on the top is different from the pickup on the side. So when you see singers like Michael Jackson, who was a very good mic handler, or my friend here in Nigeria, Johnny Drill, when you see him handling his microphone, or even my brother Nat, when you see him handle microphone, you think he's playing with the microphone. No, he's not. Every time he moves the microphone this way, or he turns it this way, or he pulls it down this way, he's not just doing it for fashion. He knows exactly how the microphone is going to sound when he does those things. So he's doing those things to manipulate the sound of the microphone, which reduces the work the engineer has to do, because you know the song that you're singing. So the way you handle the microphone changes the way the microphone picks up the sound and changes the tone of the microphone. So it's good for you to spend some time, experiment with the microphone to find out how the microphone interprets your voice when you put it in different positions, and then use that to the best when you are singing or when you are ministering. Rehearse with it, get used to it. For the engineer, like I said, planning is the most important thing you need to do. Plan, and plan again. Like I said, today we have a gig that is starting by 6 o'clock this afternoon. Because it's an outdoor event, even though it's online, we are capturing it outside. So we didn't have the opportunity to set up yesterday because rain has already started. The whole of today, for instance, it has been raining. So we set up in the morning, but we have to tear down. So in order for me, I'm the engineer. My job is to make sure I deliver. Some of the keyboards that the musicians asked for, I didn't have them. So yesterday, I called the musicians that were playing. I drove to their place with the keyboards that I had available. I gave it to them so that they will use it for rehearsing overnight to get used to the tones and get used to this. Then I drove back to my office, did an input list and an output list. They were supposed to supply that, they didn't. I wrote it myself. I carried my console home. I labeled all my inputs, labeled all my outputs, did all my plugins, did some presets to get everything ready, which was to make sure that even if all the time I have before the show today is 20 minutes, I will still be ready, because I've already prepared everything, input, output, processing. I've already crossed my T's and dotted my, except for an act of God. Like if the rain does not allow us to do the event, I know no matter what time I have for sound check, it will be enough because everything is pre-planned. So as an engineer, even if you are just a volunteer, you can't afford to do it half-heartedly. You have to put the whole of yourself into it. Take time to plan. Go the extra mile to ask the choir master what songs they are singing for choir administration. Go and listen to the original version of that song. If it's a copyrighted song, go and listen to the original on YouTube or on iTunes. Listen to how the song sounds. Listen to how the snare drum, the kick, the hi-hat sounds in the original. Listen to the kind of effects they use for the lead vocalist in the original sounds. Think of how you can recreate that on your console and then plan it, dot it. Believe me, people will notice the difference. The singers will notice the difference. The pastor will notice the difference. And even if they are not paying you, I mean, people will start regarding you as a professional in what you do, because that's actually the way to be a professional. To stand out, you need to work a bit more and put yourself in that place where you're able to meet every challenge that comes up for that job. All right.
So based on what you said now, we have a question, but before we take that question, is in the chat room. Before we take that question, I've worked with like 2 or 3 bands here in meeting around the sound engineer, and I realized that, and I want you to put this out straight, because I have seen other engineers as well that probably before a gig starts, I love to like play a very well made music and to put in the mood of what I'm about to do. So I have seen others engineer that probably they just play part of their recorded music, probably their recorded sound, just to put them in the mood. They might not really get right, because the output you are trying to achieve at the end of the day, it depends on your mood and your mix, your hearing. And like I said, it is not really necessary to play any music before you start your preset and try to balance your sound. But personally, I love to put myself in the mood. So I need you to tell us if right or wrong, or the necessity of doing this before you start your mix.
Okay, so sound. I like to say sound engineering is not like I said before. Actually, it's not a science in particular. It's partly a science, but then for a more greater part, it's actually an art. It's an art. You know, in science, if 1 + 1 is always equal to 2. If you are depending on the log that you're working on, 1 + 1 is always equal to 2. 2 + 2 is equal to 4. But in sound engineering and things like music, it's not exactly like that. I would take a console, take some microphones as my input, take some speakers as my input, and I will produce a sound that most people will accept as fantastic. My friend Eddie or Tolu Odumosu will take the same console, take the same microphones, take the same speakers. He will mix a completely different way. He will use his EQs completely different. He will use his effects in a completely different manner. But at the end of the day, for the same song, he will still produce a sound that people will say, fantastic, beautiful. Okay, so sound is subject. It's not exactly, there isn't exactly one way that leads to the answer. You are allowed to be creative. You're allowed to create your own rules. You're allowed to follow your ways. The only thing that I can say is that there are guidelines. There are some things that are general perception, you know, which normally you will do to get the best. Okay, so for instance, it's possible to mic your snare only on the top, but people have generally found out that to get the best of the snare sound, you typically will put 2 mics on it. So you have 1 mic on top, which you call snare top, and then you have another mic below, which you call snare bottom. And then combining those 2 will help you usually to get a better sound from the snare that you get from just 1 microphone. Okay? Okay. In as much as there are no rules, there are guidelines that can help. Okay, so when you are preparing for a gig or you are preparing to mix a show, one of the things you need to do is, of course, if you are not familiar with that hall or you're not familiar with the church or you're not familiar with the equipment they have, then of course you have to familiarize yourself with it. And one of the ways to quickly find out how sound translates in that room or in that space or in that hall or even in that open um, area is to play a music that you are familiar with, something you have a song that you listen to all the time.
Are we lost you there? Hello? Yeah, while we are waiting for Mr. Tayo to come back. So we've been talking about the necessity of the sound, the importance of sound in our day-to-day music life. So there is a question here. So we are still waiting for our guest. So I would love to take the question. The question says, I often in African music and churches, the instrumentalists sound always overpowered, the vocalists, and it is often off-putting to the balance of the sound. What advice do you give to the music manager in understanding that less is more? Yeah, this is very, very simple. I think if you've been following us in the last couple of weeks, we've talked about the ingredients and the understanding of music and to be a musician. So playing music is far more important than hearing yourself alone. Understanding that you as a you as a singer or as an instrumentalist, that is one core obligation that we all have, and that is to produce good music. Now, if you see yourself as a musician, you don't want to.
Sorry, a call cut into my
Okay,
cut
yeah.
into my session.
Our line.
Yes, I'm back. A call cut into my session.
Okay, that's
Uh,
all right. So
so what was I saying?
you're talking about the sound, the engineers understanding. The question I asked is about the
Yes.
sorry, pardon me. So the question is for the sound engineer to play a particular mix before the music starts.
Oh, okay. Before, okay. Yeah. So what? Okay, I get it. So one of the quickest ways to know how sound translates in a hall is to play music you are used to inside a hall. So I have a Nathaniel Bassey song that I like so much. I like the mix. I play most cases when I'm working in church. I play it to when I hear. I'm so used to listening to it that when I hear it in the church, I can tell which frequencies. A hall affects the way your sound sounds. The ways the walls of the church, the ceiling, the floors will reflect sound is different from any other place. It's called the acoustics of the church, um, and that might naturally increase some frequencies and decrease some frequencies. So even though your speakers are good, the sound will still sound different from hall to hall or from church to church. So when I play a piece of music that I'm used to in a hall, it helps me to quickly tell which frequencies I need to cut down in my general EQ, which frequencies I need to accentuate in my EQ, which ranges I need to compress. So I subscribe to playing music that they are familiar with before you play. But apart from that, your ear is your ear is the most important part when you are engineering. And as an engineer, I try to keep quiet as much as possible before so if I have an important gig, uh, maybe an hour before the gig, I don't want to listen to loud music. I don't want to hear anything loud. So at times you might see me put my in-ear monitor in my ears. I'm not listening to music. I'm just intentionally closing my ears. I'm reducing the amount of sound bombarding my ears because your ears get tired. Funny enough. So if you expose your ear to sound, to reasonably loud sound for a while, you get what you call ear fatigue. That's why as a mix engineer, if you work in the studio or you do mixing, they tell you don't spend too long on the mix. So you've been mixing a song for 3 hours, you should take a break. You take a 30 minutes or 1 hour break from it. You discover that by the time you come back to it, it sounds different because your ears actually get fatigued. Your hearing structure is made up of muscles and bones and nerves, which also get tired. Okay, so before a gig, I actually prefer to just have silence for a while, so that when I'm going into the gig, my ears are rested and ready.
Okay, sir. So we have a question here. The first question,
okay.
2 questions. The first one, so you can read this from Esther Ola. Okay, she's talking about the overpowering things that the musicians most time overpower their sound, their volume on the vocalist, and then what advice do you give to music managers to understand that less is more?
Okay, so yeah, that problem of being too loud is a problem that is that is generally an African problem. We like being loud, so you are playing the guitar, you want your guitar to be the loudest thing in the room. Not that you are being selfish, but you just enjoy it better when it's loud. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 quick tips.
Short, Mr. Tayo. We have just 10 minutes, and we need to manage these 10 minutes so that we.
Okay. Okay, so as musicians, I will advise you get used to listening to music at low levels. Get used to listening to yourself at low levels. When you make your music, your instruments loud, number one, you will disturb the vocalists because they are the ones that suffer most. Their instrument is not electronic, it's natural, and there is a limit to which they can shout. So you should help their voice to sound good by not making your instrument too loud. That's number one. Number two, when you make your instrument loud, you actually clean your ears. I have an app that I've been taking about, and I'm sure you can get access to it. Just Google it. Ear testing. Just ear testing software. I want every one of you to search for it, including pastors and musicians and singers. 80% of musicians and singers in Nigeria have actually lost part of their hearing, and they don't even know. They don't even know. So I will advise you by yourself. Some of these apps, you can get them on your iPhone or your Android. Get those softwares, test your ears so that you know how much of your hearing you have left. When you expose yourself to loud sound, it damages your ear. So the lower volume you can listen to, the better it is for your ear. Okay. And then for the managers, the person managing the music, try to migrate your musicians to in-ear monitors. Things like this. They're called this is the Shure SE215, and it's a good in-ear monitor. There are many different types. Buy in-ear monitors. Instead of using speakers for monitoring for your musicians, use in-ear monitoring. Why this helps is that only the person wearing it will hear from it. So even if they decide to make it too loud for themselves, then the musicians will only be affecting themselves. They won't be affecting anybody else. That allows you to have just maybe a pair of monitors or 4 monitors on stage to generally monitor everybody. But if the musicians have their in-ear, it helps to clean up your stage. All right.
Thank you very much. And I want to even say that the importance of in-ear monitoring is I cannot be overemphasized. It is very important.
Yeah.
So I think this person would like to ask this question audibly. So I would suggest that the admin should release Peter Moses to ask this question audibly.
Okay.
So you can go ahead with your question, Peter Moses. Is it there?
Are you hearing me? Hello, are you hearing me?
Yeah. Yes, clearly now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, my brother, Mr. Leke. I salute you. Thank you for having this, having this thing this time. Please, I just wanted to ask. I thank you. There is something you mentioned. You mentioned about hearing, being bored with your ears, because normally as an instrumentalist, there are some time you score song, not every time, because if your ear and your brain is bored with sound, you'll be hearing different things that is not accurately. So I thank you for that. You mentioned that is very, very perfect. But again, I will just try to ask, what is the benefit of instrumentals playing with earphone to a better sound? Because I see some instrumentals that are using earphone on the stage, both the keyboardist, the drummer having earphone. So how is it beneficial? Is it a perfect stage setting?
Okay, thank you,
to a better sound? Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so the earphone you mentioned, our time is gone, Abi.
Yes, we still have 5 minutes, and we have one more question.
Okay. So I'll just answer this very quickly. The earphone you mentioned, that's what I was showing you. It's called an in-ear monitor. And what it is basically is it's your monitor in your ears. Now, depending on the hall you are in, a floor monitor can sound good or can sound bad. The mix might be good, but the monitor might still sound bad if the acoustics of the hall is bad. But with an in-ear monitor, the acoustics can never be bad. Okay. And then one more advantage of this, why a lot more people are turning to it, like I said some years back about digital consoles, about 4 years ago, I said only very poor churches will still be using analog consoles by the year 2020. It's already happening. Almost everybody, even in Nigeria, everybody uses digital consoles. I started saying the same thing about 2 years ago. In another 3 years now, I used to say in another 5 years, now it remains 3 years. In another 3 years, only very poor churches and people that don't have means will still be using floor monitors for their musicians. This is the future. Just take it like that. You have a situation where the band director wants to be talking to the other musicians. So maybe the guy on the keyboardist is the band leader and he wants to tell, oh yeah, drums, count, 1, 2, 3, that roll now. Okay, now we are going to the vamp. You can't do that if you are using monitors, because if you are talking into a microphone through the monitors, everybody can hear you. The whole church can hear you. But if you are using in-ears, you can have a situation where the band leader, either the drummer or the keyboardist, is talking to all the musicians, counting them in, telling them what parts to go, telling them, okay, let's do that intro again. Oh, yeah. And they can create beautiful music, even more interesting than when they rehearse, because they are able to talk to each other. But without in-ears, you can't do that. Yes. So in-ears is the future. Okay, maybe we can take one last question if you have that much time.
And to further ask our questions, we can drop our questions on our IG. You can DM me the question where we will answer. Okay. So the last question, was it that music is interesting and sweet when you can hear yourself as a vocalist, and when the instrument has been turned up in the middle of the song, and then you can flat the voice. When you follow the instrument going higher at this point, what can a singer do? Are you there?
Why during your
Hello, Mr. Tyre. Okay, I think we lost him. So the question, if I understand what this brother is asking, that what can the singer do once the instrument is turned up? Like our guests have said, the singer only have control of the voice. Okay, he's back. All right, sir, you can quickly take the question.
Okay, so I mean,
Hello? Okay, we lost him again. So I will just quickly answer that. We've said earlier on today that musicians mostly have volume control of their instruments, while the singers don't. So it is very important. Now, it is a two-way thing. Is it that the musicians understand how to minimize their volume so that the singers don't overstretch themselves? when performing. Or it is also the duty of the sound engineer to listen. So when a sound engineer is mixing, you listen to the overall music. You listen to the high low of every instrument. And most importantly, the singers should actually be louder than the musicians. Both the drummer, the keyboardist, everybody should accompany the musician. So two things, the musicians have a role to play, the sound engineer also have a role to play. Is that the musicians turn down their volume and the sound engineer also help out in the mix to balance the volume. So today we will be ending today's class on this note. And unfortunately, our guests will probably have some network error. So if you have further questions, you can drop those questions on my IG page. And the full video of this section will be uploaded on my IG probably later tonight or tomorrow morning. So we can go ahead and watch some of these things we've talked about. And I want to believe that we've been greatly impacted. So our guest today, Mr. Tayo, is the CEO of Soja Limited. It deals with sound hardware in case you want to patronize him in Nigeria and you have other questions. I'll be tagging him on most of today's posts on my IG. And I want to especially appreciate everybody that's been participating in the last couple of weeks. I want to